1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Friday edition of the Zach Gelb Show, coming to you live here across all of our local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We will go to Minnesota. Coming up in 20 minutes from now, Matthew Coller will join us of Purple Insider. He is a Vikings reporter. We'll try to see if there is any legitimate interest from the Minnesota Vikings side when it comes to potentially pursuing the services of one Aaron Rodgers. And then at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time, we will do a little prospect profile today. We will tap in on the prospects from Penn State, Tyler Warren, and also Abdul Carter. We'll do so with former Penn State football player Jason Cabinda, who will join us coming up in an hour from now. But I'll tell you, I didn't expect to start the show today talking about the Cowboys. Because the Cowboys right now are a giant waste of time, right? They're an organization where they're not really trying to win. They're just trying to create drama. They're trying to just find a way to get in the news and create headlines. And right, we talked about Micah Parsons yesterday, how I don't think it's a matter of if he's going to get a new deal done. I think it's just going to be a matter of when him and the drama Dallas choking Cowboys are going to get a deal done. Because we talked about it, right? Jerry Jones likes to wait. Jerry Jones likes there to be speculation. Micah Parsons will provide that speculation, maybe have it feel as if it's a contentious relationship, because he'll open his mouth on his podcast and he will talk about what's going on with the contract negotiations. We had him on at the Super Bowl, and he started it, right? He said he doesn't intend on requesting a trade as long as he's getting taken care of financially. And the Cowboys still haven't done that yet. So I wasn't anticipating us to really talk about the Cowboys. And I saw late last night, right, there was a report that the Cowboys are making a big push for Cooper Kupp. So, all right, you see that and you say to yourself, okay, we'll inevitably at one point during the show today bring up Cooper Kupp and talk about the destinations and maybe the Cowboys get in the mix and maybe he should go. But you wouldn't lead a show talking about just the Cowboys being interested in Cooper Kupp. If this was 3-4 years ago, different conversation. But in the last 3 years, Cooper Kupp has only played in 33 games. So I'm on the subway last night, was out and about in the city, and I'm perusing social media. And when I'm on social media, I saw this clip of Demarcus Lawrence. And I'm like, all right, probably an innocuous clip, right? It's just Demarcus Lawrence talking about his new destination. He signed with the Seattle Seahawks. And then I start to see this clip all over my social media feed. It wasn't just, you saw it one time, and I scrolled past it at first, not thinking anything of it. And then I kept on seeing it everywhere I scrolled on social media. So this was Demarcus Lawrence yesterday via the Hawk Blogger with Brian Nemhauser. And this is what Demarcus Lawrence had to say about the Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas is my home. Made my home there. My family lives there. I'm forever going to be there. But, I know for sure I'm not going to win a Super Bowl there. So, yeah. We here.
So I hear that comment, right? He knows he's not going to win a Super Bowl in Dallas. And I sit there and I say, he's not lying, right? The drama Dallas choking Cowboys have not won a Super Bowl or even been to a Super Bowl since 1995. They haven't even got to an NFC championship game since the 1995 season. I'll tell you, if I had $1 for every time I said that during the course of the year, I would be a very wealthy man. But that's just the reality of the matter. That's just the facts of the matter. But I say to myself, Demarcus Lawrence, who, was a very good player in this league. What did you do? And I'm not talking individually, but what did you do to help the problem in Dallas? It's not as if you were in Dallas for a sip of coffee after winning a Super Bowl somewhere else, and you got there and you're like, the culture is just so toxic. You were in Dallas for your entire career up until the other day. Since 2014, you were in Dallas for a decade. Last time I checked, did Demarcus Lawrence ever make a Super Bowl? No. You know what? That may be too big of a question there. Did Demarcus Lawrence ever get to an NFC championship game? Nope. So it's easy for Demarcus Lawrence to sit back and say, hey, if you go to Dallas, you're never going to a Super Bowl. You're not going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. But what did you do to try to turn that around? And I know someone will call in and will be like, he was a 4-time Pro Bowler. Right? All right. All fine. He only made one All-Pro team in his career with the Dallas Cowboys, and that was in 2017 when he was a second-team All-Pro. And this is not me knocking the career of Demarcus Lawrence. Demarcus Lawrence has had a very good career. I wouldn't say great, but it's been a very good career. And Demarcus Lawrence was on some Cowboys teams that were very good. None of them great, though. None of them got to an NFC championship game. None of them got to a Super Bowl. Obviously, none of them won a Super Bowl. So for Demarcus Lawrence to leave and then to just crap on the Cowboys, I thought was a little weak. And also, can we just call a spade here? I know the Seahawks have been to the playoffs a bunch. I know the Seahawks have won a Super Bowl and have been to more Super Bowls a lot more recently than the Dallas Cowboys. But this Seattle Seahawks team, you're not going to a team that's ready to win. Like, I understand they just missed out on the playoffs last year. They totally revamped their team. They have a new starting quarterback in Sam Darnold, who can't win a big game to save his life. They just got rid of Tyler Lockett, who was great there for years. And they just got rid of DK Metcalf as well. So it's not as if you're going from, I'm Demarcus Lawrence leaving the Cowboys and you're joining the Eagles. Or, I'm Demarcus Lawrence, I'm leaving the Cowboys and I'm joining the Kansas City Chiefs. You basically made a lateral move for where the Cowboys are at entering 2025 and where the Seahawks are at entering 2025. And now you're pointing and laughing and you're kind of looking at the Cowboys and talking down on them. But once again, what did you do to change the narrative in Dallas? And I'm not saying what he's saying is false. You know you're not winning in Dallas. But you were there for 10 years. And you were a part of the problem why the team never got to an NFC championship game or a Super Bowl during your decade there. So I understand the message, but where it's coming from is weak, in my opinion. And I could understand maybe one player can't change an entire organization, and there's an issue with the Cowboys, and it obviously starts at the top with Jerry Jones, but there's got to be something more here. So it wasn't just that video. Micah Parsons sees that, and then Micah Parsons jumps on social media, and he goes, "This is what rejection and envy looks like. This is some clown bleep." Now, I got to be fair here. This is the dumbest beef I think I've ever seen. Seriously. Demarcus Lawrence was in the wrong for saying what he said, and I don't fault Micah Parsons for clapping back. He should defend the Dallas Cowboys. But also there is merit to what Demarcus Lawrence said, and also I could see maybe this is a little rejection. I don't think, though, Demarcus Lawrence has now envy for the Cowboys. So it didn't just stop there. This is reality TV at its finest, folks. You could tell. This is why one of my guilty pleasures is watching reality TV. And this is a reality TV script. So then Demarcus Lawrence claps back and he says, "Calling me a clown won't change the fact that I told the truth. Maybe if you spent less time tweeting and more time winning, I wouldn't have left." Boom. 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 Wow. Demarcus Lawrence. So this now adds more fuel to the fire. And I don't have a problem with players podcasting. I don't. And I don't usually have a problem with players tweeting, but I do acknowledge when players podcast and when players tweet, you open yourself up to saying stupid things. Like, I'm on a platform in football season 7 days a week. Outside of football season, I'm on the air 5 days a week. I give many, many, many takes. Sometimes the takes I'm giving in the moment I think are genius, and they end up being stupid, right? When you are an athlete, there are more eyeballs on you. So when Zach Gelb says something stupid, right, I could be the topic of the internet. And people could say, "Oh, cancel him," or "This guy's an idiot," "This guy's a moron." And they post like photos of me like from years ago when I was overweight and things like that. And like they troll you, whatever. That's fine. But when you are Micah Parsons, it turns into a conversation. Is the podcast and is the tweeting holding back the team? That's what the conversation turns out to be. And I forget who it was. But I think someone recently criticized, it may have been, Kendrick Perkins. That's who it was. Kendrick Perkins criticized Jalen Brunson for doing a podcast. And Jalen Brunson had the perfect retort. He goes, "We could be doing a lot worse things in our free time than podcasting." So he goes, "I don't think that athletes 24/7, sometimes we expect them. It's just wake up, go to the gym, go play your game, come home." Like, athletes are people too. Now their job provides a serious amount of dedication, but does Jalen Brunson have the time like once a week to do an hour podcast? Yes, he does. Does Micah Parsons have a time to be a great football player and podcast? Yes, he does. But when you're not winning and when the team's not succeeding, that's going to be the low-hanging fruit that people throw in your face. But it's clear there's been a brewing issue with Demarcus Lawrence and a disconnect in the Cowboys locker room. Because 2 Super Bowls ago, I remember that, going into, it was when they lost that game to Green Bay. He came out, I think during Super Bowl week, and he was saying to Demarcus Lawrence, "Oh, we were burnt out." And there were a lot of players. I remember Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Cooks, Micah Parsons. They all refuted that. I even brought that back up to our buddy RJ Choppy, who does local radio in Dallas last night, when I was trying to figure out what exactly the quote was. And he said, he said they were burnt out and it was a story and we kind of made fun of it and still do because we can't believe he said it because it was so ridiculous, right? So there's Demarcus Lawrence saying something stupid 2 years ago, which was his belief. Maybe he was burnt out, but he made it a reflection of the entire team, and the entire team didn't feel that way. They rejected that notion. So now, 2 years later, you leave, and on the way out, you're kind of sucking up to your new team, right? That's not close to winning a Super Bowl either. You pretty much made a lateral move. Sure, are the Seahawks more respected right now than the Cowboys? I guess. But it's not as if the Seahawks are on the brink of going to, forget a Super Bowl, how about just an NFC Championship game? Right? Like both those teams can make the playoffs this year. Both those teams can easily just as miss it, though. So you're saying, oh, yeah, the Cowboys, you know you're not going to win there. That's why I'm coming here to win. All right, fine. But then Micah Parsons responds, and then you throw a haymaker back. And that's where we're at right now. But if I had to take a side here, I actually think Micah Parsons is more in the right. I do. And I'm not looking to defend the Cowboys. I don't need to defend Micah. I have no problem calling him out when he says something that I think stupid, right? I said it to his face on this show. I don't understand why you won't call TJ Watt when he said it to us a top 5 pure pass rusher. Take me through it. I don't get it. He's explained it. I still don't get it. But in this case, I have no problem with Micah Parsons defending the Cowboys when Demarcus Lawrence said something that was unnecessary. And I don't think Demarcus Lawrence looks good here. I think, Micah Parsons is sort of right. I don't know if it's envy, but clearly he feels some type of way about how things did go down in Dallas, and now he's just trying to drag the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. And don't get me wrong. You usually don't need any help to drag the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, and usually when you do so, 9.9 times out of 10, you're in the right for doing so. But I thought that Micah Parsons was in the right here, and Demarcus Lawrence came off looking just rather petty, and it seemed as if this was something that was extremely unnecessary. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll go to Minnesota next. Matthew Coller does a great job as a reporter covering the Minnesota Vikings for the Purple Insider. We're going to get all the latest on this speculation that maybe Aaron Rodgers could be going to Minnesota. What's going on with J.J. McCarthy? The Vikings also been in the news a lot this offseason outside of Aaron Rodgers with some of the moves that they made on the defensive side of the ball. We did see Minnesota have a very good season last year. We talked about them in a very positive way for most of the season. And then the last 2 games, obviously, that did turn with what did transpire up against the Detroit Lions and also the LA Rams. So we'll talk to Matthew Coller. We'll tap in on the Minnesota Vikings next. 15 past the hour, off and running on a very busy Friday. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, welcome back into the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We wait and wait and wait to see what the heck Aaron Rodgers is going to do and when he's going to do it. When is it going to happen? I have no clue. What I think will happen is that he'll be the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do I feel great about that, though? No, I do not. Obviously, we know the Steelers are in the mix, the Giants are in the mix, and then people are throwing the Minnesota Vikings now in the mix as well. Matthew Coller does a great job covering the Minnesota Vikings at Purple Insider, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Matthew, appreciate the time. How you been?
Well, when your team signs a bunch of players and spends all the money, you think, all right, well, this is all according to plan, rookie quarterback contract, J.J. McCarthy. And then every morning when I log on to social media and I see a new report, the Vikings are thinking about Rodgers, I keep thinking, this can't be right. They're not going to do this again, right, with the Brett Favre thing. But what is interesting here is that the brass of the Minnesota Vikings, despite all the big money spending, has not spoken to the media. They haven't called any press conferences. Kevin O'Connell hasn't come out and said, guys, stop with the Rodgers stuff. Come on. You think we're crazy? McCarthy's the guy. So the fact that we haven't gotten that, and then Diana Rossini and so forth, people putting it out there that they're still thinking about it, makes me think that there is smoke or there's fire, whatever that saying is, but there might be something to them considering Aaron Rodgers. I don't know, but I don't really get it because they drafted McCarthy 10th overall. So I've been obsessing over this like everyone else. I know you just asked, how are you? But that's where I'm at right now.
No, I understand it. So out of 100% right now, if I had to ask you, give me a number where you feel that Aaron Rodgers is going to be starting under center week 1 for the Vikings in 2025, what do you think that number is right now when we get inside your internal confidence?
I still think that it's pretty low. I would still go maybe 20% chance that happens. I mean, I think what we know from all these reports is that Aaron Rodgers wants to be a Minnesota Viking. And I do not blame him. When you compare it to the Giants, when you compare it to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have the best receiver in the world in Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. They brought back Aaron Jones. They've beefed up the offensive line. And oh, by the way, the head coach just got 14 wins out of Sam Darnold, who was previously considered one of the biggest busts of all time. And so if you're Rodgers, you're like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to play there? In similar fashion to when Favre showed up with the Vikings and they had Percy Harvin and Adrian Peterson. Like that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But from the Vikings perspective, that's where I cannot make it work, because even though JJ McCarthy missed last season with knee surgery, he had made a great impression on this organization throughout training camp. I was there every day for training camp practices, and he got better and better and better. And there was a serious competition that I think was about to take another step right before he got injured based on how he played in the preseason. So the confidence, even at the end where he got hurt last year, was so high in JJ McCarthy. And then the Vikings loved the way that he handled the behind the scenes stuff. They trained him essentially to be QB1. They had him doing virtual reality, game planning, sit downs with the coach. And then they told us at the combine that, he's doing well physically and he's back up to his normal weight and those things. Everything pointed toward JJ McCarthy is the guy. And I don't know why he wouldn't be. We've seen a lot of young quarterbacks have success in the league. Brock Purdy was year 2 in the Super Bowl. We saw Jaden Daniels go to the NFC Championship. I think quarterbacks are more ready now than ever to step into a situation like this, and you couldn't set it up much better for him. So I don't know why you would make the deal with the devil with Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, has won 13 of his last 34 games, hasn't been good, with a Packers team that's well coached, with a Jets team that was supposed to be well stocked and ready to compete, and that didn't work out. This is just not a player who's been very good since 2021, but sometimes head coaches, they can convince themselves, hey, if I just got Rodgers, then it's going to be Super Bowl time. And you never know. So I'm not closing the door to it until Kevin O'Connell comes out with McCarthy and says he's our guy. The door remains open.
Well, that's the other thing, too. It's like Aaron was so close to getting to another Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. And they're at the end, right, did not play well up against San Francisco in the divisional round. Did not play well up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the second half when Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions and he was home at an NFC Championship game. Like, if they bring in Aaron Rodgers, my interpretation, it's 1 year, you delay McCarthy, and you're going for a Super Bowl. But, Matt, I don't think Rodgers has another Super Bowl in him. So that's why I feel like it's pointless for the Vikings to bring in Aaron Rodgers.
Right. I mean, what were you doing in 2021? That's the last time the guy was a good quarterback. And if we got to go back that far, then I think you're really hoping and dreaming at that point. And I've seen some people say, well, Rodgers can still spin it. And he played against the Vikings this year. We saw a handful of breathtaking throws, but you also saw that the offense tends to have to be Aaron Rodgers' offense. And I'm supposed to believe that it's going to be different here. I mean, all this stuff is, I'm supposed to believe it's going to be different than with Matt LaFleur. It's not like he was with a bad coach before in Green Bay and it's not like that organization could have loved him anymore. He's an icon in Green Bay. And they said, okay, we've had enough of the Aaron Rodgers experience. It's time to move on. And then 3-4 years later, you're going to jump on that train. I don't know. It reminds me of how, wasn't there a report that the 49ers wanted to bring in Brady and sit Brock Purdy for another year?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys, just go with the younger player. I mean, Rodgers, even in the best light from last year, if you look at Rodgers' performance, he was a mid quarterback. He was not even as good as what Sam Darnold was. So if you get mid performance from him, maybe a little better because he's got Justin Jefferson, you could see some exciting moments happen and some incredible throws that are still in the arm. But you're talking about, if you make that deal with him, you better win the Super Bowl or it was a total disaster, because then you wasted everybody's time and didn't have McCarthy playing. I don't think that it's realistic to put them as a Super Bowl contender with the way Rodgers has played for the last several years.
Matthew Coller, do you think there's a serious appetite amongst the fan base? I know it's tough to get an entire pulse of the fan base, but if you were just, how connected you are and you cover the team and you speak to so many fans, is there a serious appetite for Rodgers, or is this more just, hey, Aaron really wants to go there, but the fans are like, yeah, we're good?
I think there's always a section of fans that want to see the world burn, that because the Vikings never win the Super Bowl, they want to see the craziest thing happen. I mean, that's really true. They get bored, right? Oh, every year you win some games, you go to the playoffs, you get your face kicked in, and like that's it. So, hey, why not? Let's do something crazy. There's always that percentage. But if we're doing percentages, I'd say 90% want JJ McCarthy. In fact, the obsession with JJ McCarthy got to the point where last year there were some fans who didn't want to see Darnold playing well because they were worried that he was going to play himself into another contract, and he almost did. I think if he maybe didn't play so well or so poorly in those last couple games, but as the season went along, I think fans were still so into the JJ McCarthy plan. They were like, Darnold, calm it down a little bit here. Maybe like an 8-win season would have been fine. They love JJ McCarthy. He's the golden boy, the chosen one. Think about how rarely it's been in Vikings history since they've had a franchise quarterback. If you go back to Dante Culpepper, but then his knee gets hurt, Teddy Bridgewater, his knee gets hurt. And before that, Tommy Kramer, before that, Fran Tarkenton. I mean, there's been so few examples of this. Meanwhile, everybody in Minnesota has looked to the East over there in Green Bay, the biggest rival, and they've always got their franchise quarterback settled. I think Vikings fans are desperate for this to be figured out and have had enough of this roller coaster of 1 year of Case Keenum, 1 year of Sam Darnold, 1 year of Jeff George, 1 year of Randall Cunningham. Like, I think they want a long-term answer to build around in JJ McCarthy.
The other thing I want to ask you about, I know you touched on it, Matthew Coller, does a great job covering the Vikings Purple Insider here with us as they're trying to gauge what the Vikings' interest is on Aaron Rodgers. The McCarthy injury, we know he had the second surgery, right? We found out about that in November. You talked about what the team said at the Combine. And I know there's so many national pundits, including myself, where we talk about the injury. And I keep on saying, like, all right, you're bringing in Rodgers because you want to give McCarthy more time. Like, in what world is J.J. McCarthy not going to be ready, by week 1 of the start of this? Like, it doesn't add up to me here when people talk about the injury with J.J.
Right. There's only a couple of reasons that you would potentially do something like this. I mean, one of them would be that you look into Rodgers' eyes and are entranced by his previous great throws and success in the NFL. The other reason would be if you didn't fully believe that JJ McCarthy's recovery went as well as you had expected it to go, because meniscus tears are a little bit more on the dicey side than ACLs, where somebody tears an ACL, you snap your fingers, they're back, good to go. But with the meniscus, it can be a little bit more tricky. The Vikings actually had a young player, Sharif Floyd, a few years ago, whose career ended because of a messed up surgery. So you do worry a little bit more about that one. And throughout his recovery, he did lose a ton of weight, which when Vikings fans saw him on TV on the sideline, they were like, wait, is that JJ McCarthy? Because he looks like he went back in time and he's 16 years old now. But that's why when we heard at the Combine, all right, he's back up to his weight. Imagine that. Kids these days can just lose weight, put it back on. Don't you wish that could be us? But, so he's back up to weight. And Kevin O'Connell told us that he's going to be ready for the offseason program, which starts with the lifting and then the OTAs and all that. That to me was an indication, like, all right, he should be ready to go. And as much as he learned about the offense and about the NFL, and I think he had a great front row seat for how hard the NFL is with Sam Darnold. One day they love you, the next day they want you out the door. He saw what the amount of pressure, how fast the game moves, and work behind the scenes diligently to be ready for this year. I don't see why he wouldn't be. I'm with you. I don't see why he wouldn't be unless they know something that we don't know.
Let me get your thoughts, though, on JJ as a player. So I like Michigan. I've watched every snap of JJ McCarthy's Michigan career. Do I think he's a great quarterback? No. I thought they asked him to be a game manager at Michigan. There are some moments where they asked him to do more, and he played well in those games. But I know that he's a national champion. He was 27-1. And I think with Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, if he's healthy, I think J.J. McCarthy could be just as good as what Sam Darnold did this past year, if not better. What do you think the Vikings could do with J.J. McCarthy if, in fact, he does get the baton handed to him and he is the week 1 starter?
So that's interesting because when the Vikings drafted him, I think they thought he's probably quite a ways away. And I thought the same as you. They didn't even really throw the ball with this guy at Michigan. Like, are they drafting a game manager type? Are they trying to get Matt Hasselbeck with Seattle or something here? But I think what they saw was the ceiling for JJ McCarthy and the growth potential. And then that's what I saw, because last year when he first arrived for OTAs, I mean, he was very much a ball of clay, but as he learned more and more, he grew extremely quickly. And by the end of training camp, he was looking like someone who was ready to start week 1. And not only that, but also looking like his ceiling is much higher than people painted it. And I'll admit this is hyperbole, but I came home from a really good practice he had one day and said to my wife, I think we were told that we were getting, Matt Hasselbeck, but it might be John Elway instead. And wow. I know I like that's over the top, but that really shows you though the progress he made in the development. And he was running the whole offense in training camp. And this is not an offense that looks like Michigan. It's not handoff first. This is on the quarterback's shoulders, but the way he immediately took over as a leader, his arm talent, the way he handled the 2-minute drills and stuff like that. I know these are practices, but I've seen a lot of quarterbacks have bad practices doing this stuff. So I think that by the end of that, they were so impressed. And then everybody saw the preseason game that they were ready to have him compete. And had Sam Darnold, like if he had been healthy and Darnold started 2-3 or something, they would have been ready to turn it over to JJ McCarthy, which is why I can't make heads or tails of why Aaron Rodgers is in this discussion, because all of us walked away and Kevin O'Connell called McCarthy the franchise quarterback at the joint practices they had in Cleveland. And I was there for that and thought, well, this makes a lot of sense from what I've seen. So I think that his ceiling after actually seeing him in NFL practices is probably higher than what it looked like in Michigan, because the way Michigan played football, which they won the national championship. So you can't really blame them for playing that way.
And that's why I think this Rodgers stuff is more so Aaron wants to go there. I get your point, why you can't totally rule it out, because the Vikings haven't come out and said, hey, we're not bringing in Aaron Rodgers, we're sticking with J.J. McCarthy. That's why I still think the Rodgers stuff is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is when I see reports that they're thinking about it, I think, like, what, did they not know?
I think about a lot of things, too, I think about dating Beyonce. Doesn't mean I get a date with Beyonce, all right?
But did they just start thinking like about that? Maybe a metaphor would be like, I think about sometimes if I drove my car 120 miles an hour or something, but I don't do it because it's way too dangerous, right? It's the same thing where you're like, well, what if Rodgers? No. But until they come out and say it, then we're still going to sit here and wait in the layer of Aaron Rodgers that we've all lived in for how many years now. History really does repeat itself here with the same way. We're all waiting on Favre years ago. We're all waiting on Rodgers now.
All righty, last thing on the Vikings, and it has nothing to do with Darnold. It has nothing to do with Rodgers. It has nothing to do with McCarthy. You take a glance at what they've done this offseason, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're able to get a long-term deal done with Byron Murphy Jr. They bring in Hargrave. They bring in Jonathan Allen as well. How about some other non-quarterback pieces here with the Minnesota Vikings, what they've done this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was the trenches. It was the interior of the offensive line, interior of the defensive line, because, I mean, you all saw what happened in the playoff game, and Kevin O'Connell doesn't want that to happen again. And they showed that they were serious about it. When you spend $18 million a year on a guard who's been okay, I think there's a natural kind of recoil of like, wait a minute, really? That's how much money you're giving that guy? But that's the guard market, and they needed to desperately improve that if JJ McCarthy, assuming it's him, is going to succeed. Getting also a 32-year-old center who's a great pass blocker, and Ryan Kelly, that's one of those, hey, it's not going to lead Sports Center or whatever, but it's certainly a big thing for them to have a veteran like that leading a young quarterback. And then on the interior of the D-line, they have had nobody who could pressure the quarterback there for like 5 or 6 years since they signed Sheldon Richardson back in 2018. And that was another area where we all watch the Super Bowl. Football people are just like us, where they go, they rushed with 4 on every single play. What if we rushed with 4 more often? Brian Flores will continue to be a mad scientist. He's going to blitz. He's not going to rush with 4 every play. But you see the advantage of that when you have those interior rushers. And if you can get them, they are worth their weight in gold. So I really think that they shored up all the weakness areas of their team, and they've set it up. So if you're turning it over to JJ McCarthy, he's got the line, he's got the receivers, he's got the defense, and off you go. And they have a legitimate chance to compete in his first year.
He covers the Vikings for Purple Insider. Also, make sure you check out a book that he did author, Football is a Numbers Game. He is Matthew Coller. Matt, great insight. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks for having me.
There you go, Matthew Coller with us. We'll take a time out. We'll come on back. We will update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio next. We'll do a news brief. Update time first, though. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Iowa is the latest school looking for a new coach, reportedly firing Fran McCaffrey. The Hawkeyes went to 7 NCAA tournaments in his 15 years at the school, but never passed the second round, and were 17-16 this year. McCaffrey is the school's all-time leader in victories with 297. Lots of conference tournament action today, and the day started in the Big Ten with Michigan State getting past Oregon 74-64, and a final just a couple of moments ago. Auburn got a good push from Ole Miss, but the Tigers prevail 62-57. Also today in the Atlantic 10, VCU a winner over St. Bonaventure 76-59. Right now in the Big Ten, Wisconsin all over UCLA at the half, 48-29. And with 2 seconds left, Memphis leads Wichita State in the AAC semifinals 83-80. North Carolina needed a good run to solidify its tournament standing. A win over Duke tonight would certainly go a long way. The longtime rivals meet in the ACC semis with Blue Devil star Cooper Flagg likely out with an ankle injury. And also tonight, the Cavaliers go for their 16th in a row in Memphis. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
It's time to ask the pros. You, the listener, gets to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sports Center at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I don't know if Stu or Samter saw this news, and I'll get to the audio in just a second. Are you guys this tapped in? Let's see. Do you have any idea of a sports couple that may have broken up? Have you seen any of this speculation?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Go ahead, give me the guess.
The new Miami quarterback, Carson Beck, and I guess the girl that he was dating.
You don't know which Cavender's which.
Yeah.
So it's Hannah Cavender, who is dating Carson Beck, and they may no longer be dating. Well, it's not official yet, but there's a lot of speculation that they broke up. And Haley Cavender, who is dating Ferguson on the Cowboys, she tweeted out yesterday, I just want to say one thing because I can't be too crazy unfiltered on here. If your sister comes to you or your friends or someone that's really important in your life and they have a gut feeling about a relationship or a friendship, for example, and they just tell you that on a repeated basis, trust your dang sister. Trust her. She's always right. I promise you. Or your mom. They're always right. Anyways, happy Thursday. What a fall from grace for Carson Beck. Supposed to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. You don't end up getting the job done in Georgia. You got to transfer to Miami. And now you're probably broken up with the Cavender. Now, I don't want to accuse anyone of anything. If there was maybe some cheating, we don't know what the other girl looks like, but it doesn't seem like things are going right these days for Carson Beck. We'll leave that at that. All righty, let's get to a little news brief here. Myles Garrett on his new deal with the Cleveland Browns.
I think the fans will see that, my heart's in the right place. It's never been about money. It's always been about winning, and that's where my frustration lies. And, I don't regret it. I feel like I went out and earned it by, playing best brand of ball that I know possible, and I plan to deliver week in and week out during the season.
It looks like the whole thing was a long game for you to get more money. So how do you tell fans, no, that's not it?
I don't tell fans anything. I go out there and prove it. If it's about the money, then I can just pack it in and not go out there and give my best effort. But I plan to be the best person possible in this locker room, be the best leader possible, dominating on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. So that really shows you what it's all about. That really proves it to the fans. No amount of words will.
If it looks like a duck, if it swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then guess what? It's probably a duck. So stop with this nonsense that it wasn't all about the money and that it's all about winning. You're staying in Cleveland. Once again, Myles Garrett, you are staying in Cleveland. This is not even a destination that you could spin into talking yourself into being a winning destination. You don't have a quarterback. The Browns haven't had a quarterback in my entire life. So stop. You told me at the Super Bowl. I believed you. This is all about the trade request to go win. And why are you then staying in Cleveland? What changed? It wasn't that the Browns gave you this great plan. What great plan does Andrew Berry have? Stop it. This is all about the money. The only reason you stayed in Cleveland is because they made you an offer that you couldn't refuse. Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense for Myles Garrett. Daniel Jones on the competition coming up with Anthony Richardson.
A lot of respect for Anthony watching him. I think he's certainly a talented young player, and I think the competition aspect of it brings out the best in everybody, and I think we're both interested in helping this team win games and whatever we can do to help that happen.
Is it a little weird that a backup quarterback got an introductory press conference too?
Yes, very weird. That was my first thought. Why is he talking about this acquisition? Shouldn't he just go there and that's it?
I think there's an answer to it. Samter, it looks like you have something that you want to say about this, though.
I feel like I've seen a lot of these guys who are maybe not the biggest names who are signing with new teams, and they're kind of having press conferences with a variety of different players. It's kind of just like introducing them to the new media. I don't have an issue with it.
Is Gardner Minshew getting an introductory press conference with the Kansas City Chiefs?
He better. Greatest backup quarterback in the history of the NFL.
Have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Nick Foles?
Who?
Or Jeff Hostetler? Just throwing out two guys. There was a Brady guy that came off the bench and he won a Super Bowl. Whatever happened to that guy, though? But anyway, I think this is all intentional because Shane Steichen doesn't want Anthony Richardson to be his quarterback. I do believe that they will have Anthony Richardson start the season, but by November at the absolute latest, by the end of November, probably even earlier, Daniel Jones will be taken over as the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. So I think they want to put more pressure on Anthony Richardson. They're then going to put him up there at the podium. He's making $14 million a year, and they'll have a competition. Richardson, as long as he's healthy, will win the competition. But then, since he's never able to be the guy for a consistent amount of time, then they'll get rid of him and go to Daniel Jones. All righty, let's go to DK Metcalf on the Steelers quarterback situation.
That made me feel like they had the right decision, with who was going to be throwing me the football. And, I'm not making a decision in the quarterback room, so I'm just going to try to do the best of my abilities to, help whoever they have out there throwing the football. So, they make the correct decisions, to bring the quarterback in here. So I'm just going to roll with that.
So I'm not going to sit there and say that he doesn't care who the quarterback is going to be, but he wanted to get paid. They gave him a 5-year, $150 million deal and traded a second-round pick for him. So I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm only going to go there if I know who the quarterback's going to be. The money talks here. And I think that they probably said, okay, we think we're either going to bring back Russell Wilson, who he knows a little bit, or we're going to go sign Aaron Rodgers. And even though Geno Smith has been fine in Seattle, it's not like there's that much of a difference entering 2025 between Geno Smith, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. So I'm sure he's just fine with it. Josh Allen. This is NFL films. Even the great ones maybe do some weird things before games. Josh Allen on his pregame ritual.
I throw up before every game. Just because.
Interesting. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's not nerves, because I know you're not nervous
It's not nerves.
anymore.
It's really weird. I think going back to college, when I played, I'd always have like this mucus. I threw up before the Detroit game 2 years ago, preseason. Throughout the game, I didn't have any mucus. So I was like, I might have to start doing that. So after every pregame warm-up, I go inside and teammates will watch me and they'll cheer me on.
Your teammates will cheer you on when you're throwing up?
Yeah. Get it out, Josh. Get the demons out, so.
Family
I got a couple other guys that throw up as well.
Shoot, it's a family affair.
next time we have Deion Dawkins on, you a throw up guy? I could see Deion fist pumping. All right, Josh, let's go. Throw up. Come on. Go, Josh. Go, Josh. Go. That's the response. I don't know who the reporter is, but she's like, good for you. I threw up before. Why is that good for you? I thought that was weird. But Josh Allen, what makes him great? Throw up before a game. Here's Omar Ballo of Indiana. He calls out some Indiana fans after their latest loss.
We come here every single day. All we're trying to do is win for these people. But we lose one game, 2 games, the next thing you know, your DM is crazy. Like death wishes, like death threats and stuff like that. Like nobody want to live like that, because this is not helping anybody. It's mental draining and nobody want to deal with that for a whole 5-month season. It's too much to take in for players and for coaches. I'm not talking about the true fans because I know they had our back, but the people who pretend to be fans and want nothing but the worst for the team, I'm talking about those people.
So I think there's a difference. Like if you're a fan and you're being critical, and you're saying, oh, this player's not good or this team's not good, I think that's different. If you're DMing someone and wishing death upon them, you're a scumbag. All right? Like, there's no other way around it. Like, you're a horrible human being, even if it's like, oh, I'm just joking, it's trolling, I don't actually mean it. Like, you're just an idiot. I know these guys are getting paid now, but they're still kids at the end of the day. They're still college students at the end of the day. And even if they're pros, you shouldn't be doing that either. All righty, we got to get some audio later on. I just saw that Bruce Pearl was on ESPN after Auburn in the SEC tournament defeated Ole Miss 62-57. And he said, quote, my guards aren't, and I can't say the last word I think on the radio, but putty cats. All right? So maybe we'll chop that up and play that for you coming up later in the show because I'm curious how it sounds. I'm just reading the headlines of it right now. Jason Cabinda will join us next. We'll do a little prospect profile on Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. I saw that Chris Trapasso, our buddy from CBS Sports, released his latest first-round mock draft. I think this is the first one that he's done since free agency did start, which was on Wednesday, but really had all the moves done on Monday anyway, with the legal tampering period that did open up that window on Monday right at noon Eastern. So this is what Trapasso's thinking right now. I'll give you his top 10. He has Cam Ward going number 1, but Cam Ward going to the Giants. Then he had Travis Hunter going 2 to Colorado with the Browns. Abdul Carter with the Giants moving up to 1 to go get Cam Ward. He then has Tennessee taking Abdul Carter at 3 out of Penn State. Patriots going Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick. Then the Jaguars selected Mason Graham, the defensive lineman out of Michigan, who I think is a top 5 player in this draft. Then he has Ashton Genty going to Stu's Raiders at 6. So Shedeur would be on the board, and they would not take Shedeur Sanders in that spot. McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, going 7 to the Jets. Jahad Campbell going 8th to the Carolina Panthers. Amar Membu, the offensive tackle out of Missouri, going 9th to the Saints. And then Tyler Warren, 10th, going to the Chicago Bears, the tight end out of Penn State. So he has not 1 but 2 Penn State players obviously going in the top 10, and that's something that should happen. I think Abdul Carter personally is the best player in the draft, and Tyler Warren I think is more than just the tight end. Now here's my question. Where the heck does Trapasso have Shedeur Sanders going? I don't think he has him going in the first round. Which, I love Chris, but that to me is just crazy. If Shedeur Sanders doesn't go in the first round, I'll be shocked. Absolutely shocked. I think Cleveland's in play for him. I think the Giants are in play for him. And then the Raiders as well. But I'm just double checking this to make sure that I didn't miss anything here on this Trapasso mock draft. And yeah, he don't have him going, period, in the first round. That's crazy to me. Remember when Warren Sapp walked off us on the Super Bowl because I told him I thought Abdul Carter was the best player in the draft. Imagine if then I told him, oh, Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports doesn't have Shedeur Sanders going in the first round. Just wild, wild, wild stuff. So we'll connect with Jason Cabinda coming up momentarily. We're going to do a little prospect profile today as we're going to highlight 2 Penn State Nittany Lions with Abdul Carter, who once again I think is the best player, period, in this draft. And then also Tyler Warren, the tight ends. And the Bears would be a good fit for Tyler Warren. Like, I look at what the Bears have done this offseason, and you take a glance and you look what they did across the offensive line, going out there, getting Drew Dahlman, Joe Tooney, Jonah Jackson, beefing up the defense with Grady Jarrett. The Bears have provided some flexibility here in the draft. And when you look at the Bears, this has been all about helping Caleb Williams this offseason and going on out there and getting Ben Johnson, making the acquisitions that they did, bringing in 3 new starters on the offensive line. So could the Bears still go defense? Absolutely. But in this case with Trapasso's mock draft, he did not have Ashton Genty available when the Bears were picking at 10, but he did have Tyler Warren. So if the Bears could get Tyler Warren, man, that's another weapon there for Caleb Williams. All righty, we're going to get to Jason Cabinda right now. Let's get to some prospect profiles. Hit it.
The Combine is over, and the 2025 NFL Draft is almost upon us.
With the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams. The Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young. The Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence. The Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow.
Let's find out whose stock is falling and whose stock is rising.
Jackpot, baby!
And now it's time for the Zach Gelb Show to give you an inside look at some of the biggest draft prospects in this edition of Prospect Profile.
Alrighty, time to hit on 2 of the better prospects in this draft. Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State, and also Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. We welcome in a former fullback of Penn State University, and that, of course, is Jason Cabinda here with us on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Jason, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. How you been?
Yes, absolutely. I'm good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. We appreciate you jumping on board with us. So let me start you off with Abdul Carter. I think he's the best player, period, in this draft. His first year going over and being an edge rusher as they move him from linebacker, and he had 24 tackles for loss and 12 sacks. It's crazy to think with only 1 year under his belt, as an edge rusher, as a defensive end, how much better he could actually get with what he was able to do this past year.
I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, we saw Micah Parsons in college, and we saw he didn't even make the transition up to the line of scrimmage until he got to the league. I think it was really smart that Penn State was able to identify his rushing ability and kind of make that move a little early for him in college. And, I mean, for him to have the production he had in just year 1 kind of makes you speculate on just how high this guy's ceiling is, because the athletic ability is off the charts. I mean, I expect him to run really fast at pro day. I hate to compare him so much to Micah Parsons, but as I continue to watch the film and I continue to go through what he did this season, it's just so hard not to say that this guy is just another Micah Parsons clone. I mean, this guy is just so good. His bend ability is off the charts. He's got all the pass rush moves in the arsenal. I'm really excited to see what he does at the next level, and I think he's one of those prospects where you can't miss because his floor is still pretty high, and then the ceiling is Micah Parsons and possibly beyond.
Yeah, the ceiling is the roof, right? As what Michael Jordan would say all those years ago at UNC. So you talk about Micah Parsons. I see the comparisons. I know that's a big thing to say, but absolutely, you feel like he could be maybe a little bit better than Micah?
I think he could be even better. I think that his bend ability is just slightly better than Micah's. I think Micah's maybe a little bit more powerful in terms of strength, but the athleticism in terms of the bend that Abdul has, I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to find a prospect or a guy that I can think of off the top of my head that has better bend ability in terms of defeating the block of an offensive tackle and being able to flip the hips and turn to the quarterback the way that Abdul Carter is able to do it.
There's obviously a lot of great players in this draft, right? Cam Ward's supposed to be really damn good. Travis Hunter. You got other players as well, Ashton Genty, Tyler Warren, Shedeur Sanders, right? Guys that we're expecting to hear their name called early, Mason Graham. Do you feel as if Abdul Carter, with everything you're saying, is the best player in this draft?
I think that if your need is at DN or at pass rush, I'd be hard pressed to find a guy that's better than him. I know a lot of people are talking about Jalen Walker out of Georgia, but I just think Abdul is better. I think there's more upside there. And at the end of the day, you have to realize that the versatility is there because he's had years at playing stand-up linebacker as well. So this is a guy that, you can rush and blitz the passes from multiple positions on the field, whether it's up on the edge, whether it's at a stand-up backer. There's just so many ways that you can use him as a defensive coordinator. He's really a guy that becomes a chess piece for your defense. Very versatile player.
Jason Cabinda here with us. All righty, let's flip it to the offensive side of the ball. Tyler Warren, even with the praise for Abdul Carter, and I thought Abdul Carter was their best player last year, but their most important player is Tyler Warren because Koltaniki and company got really creative in the ways that they used him. I'm kind of surprised a little bit. I saw that Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, just had him mocked as the 10th overall pick in the draft. I'm surprised his stock's not even going a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, we don't typically see tight ends necessarily. I'm trying to remember where Brock Bowers was drafted. He might have been top 5. But, when you look at Tyler Warren and just how much you can do with him, he's just so complete. He's just so complete as a tight end. There's nothing he can't do well. He's nasty in the run blocking game, the nasty attitude that he has. He wants to finish every single guy, whether it's a DN, whether he's tripping up to a linebacker. This guy plays the game the way it is meant to be played. The yak yardage, he runs crisp routes. He's physical as hell. I'm super, super excited about Tyler Warren. Reminds me of a Jason Witten, Dallas Clark type of tight end. Just freaking old school. I think the coaches at the next level are just going to love this kid.
Yeah, and Brock Bowers went 13th, but hey, if Brock Bowers was in this draft again after seeing what he just did, I know you can't do it this way his rookie season, I would be like, sure, I'd be willing to draft him higher than 13th. I'm not comparing him exactly to Travis Kelce, but we've seen the importance of the tight end position really the last few years in the NFL. And it's like, okay, if I'm picking inside the top 10, just because that position doesn't usually go that early, I'm not afraid to take Tyler Warren in the top 10.
Yeah, he's a can't miss prospect. There's really no other way to put it. He's a can't miss prospect. Whatever team he goes to is going to be a great addition to that offense, a great addition to that room. He's a worker. He just checks off all of the boxes that you would want in a tight end. He's a smart player. He works hard. He leads by example. Doesn't talk too much. I just think that he's a guy that is going to make an instant impact as soon as he lands on the team.
I think the earliest he could go is 7 to the Jets. That would not surprise me because he could be the best player on the board when the Jets are picking, but also maybe to the Bears at 10. And that would be fun with all the weapons that the Bears have in Ben Johnson to see how Ben Johnson would use Tyler Warren.
Yeah, with the departure of Tyler Conklin, I definitely could see the Jets picking up this guy. They kind of are looking for their tight end. I know Yeboah had a good year last year, but I think Tyler is a definitely an upgrade or at least a great 1-2 punch for that team. If he goes to Chicago, my goodness. He goes to Chicago, my goodness, because Ben Johnson can scheme up the same way that AK was scheming him up all year. You saw just how many positions he was able to affect the game, whether it's from the backfield as a fullback, whether it's as a cupcake tight end, whether it's the inline guy. He can split out as a number 3 or number 2 receiver. This guy truly can do it all. I'm not blowing smoke. He is just a problem to deal with, and he's one of those guys where if you put him on an offense, he's the type of dude that defensive coordinators are going to have to scheme up, and you have to pay attention to him. You can't ignore him. You just can't.
2 more for Jason Cabinda, who's here with us. All right, I know you played for the Lions last year. Tremendous regular season, number 1 overall seed, coming off the bye, and they just didn't show up against a young, up-and-coming Washington Commanders team. They have a window here, right? We've seen teams that have had windows that get so close but don't get the job done. Where's your belief that the Lions will eventually be able to bring a Lombardi back to Detroit?
I think the path is definitely a bit harder. You know, I think we all thought that last year was going to be the year. It's really unfortunate that the injury bug hit the defense the way that it did last year, because going up until the middle of the season, I mean, this was a top 5 unit that Aaron Glenn was coaching up. I mean, they looked really, really impressive, and it just felt like domino after domino was falling. And what made it so impressive of a season is the fact that even with all those dominoes falling, they were continually finding ways to win.
Yeah.
Whether it was special teams fakes, whether it was 4th down conversions. I mean, they were really, and that's what good teams do. Good teams, no matter what, find ways to win. And you could tell from a mentality standpoint, you could tell from a situational football standpoint that the Detroit Lions were just so prepared. But when you go into the playoffs, and you got 2s, you got 3s playing. I mean, you're picking some guys up off the street to come and play meaningful minutes for your defense. It's just too hard to overcome when you're playing the best of the best in the NFL, because we know how hard it is to come across wins in the NFL to begin with, let alone in the playoffs against the best and against a very talented Washington Commanders offense that was led by Jaden Daniels.
And then just getting back to Penn State, they returned so many guys. I know they lose Warren. I know they lose Abdul Carter to the NFL draft. Penn State, they were in the semifinals this year. They couldn't get the job done up against Notre Dame. Do you think James Franklin will eventually get to a national championship one day? Do you think he could eventually win a national championship at Penn State? Because I see a guy that's won a lot of games, but in the bigger games up against the better opponents, that's when he comes up small.
Yeah, I mean, there's a narrative that, he got to the game before the national championship by going by SMU and Boise State, not the best opponents that were inside of the playoffs. What I do know is, man, he made a fantastic hire, Jim Knowles. I mean, you go out there and you get the best, arguably the best defensive coordinator in college football. Like, that is huge. And to a team whose identity at its core is having elite defense, and you go and get an elite coordinator to bring that to another level, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for this team. They were able to keep both of their stable backs, and Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, I think Drew Aller still has another step that he can take in this offense. I think the biggest thing is, man, can this team find a wide receiver one that they can consistently rely on? We all know that it was the biggest issue of this past season. They went and got Kyron Hudson from USC, who had a pretty good year with very mediocre quarterback play. They went and got a receiver from Troy Franklin, who also is a really solid player. I've watched some of his tape. We hope that he can level up his play, obviously in a bigger division, playing in the bigger conference, I should say, playing in the Big Ten. I think they've really got a chance this year. Ohio State has lost some players. They lost Will Howard. I think Penn State, that this might be it for. If there's a window, it's this year.
He's Jason Cabinda. Jason Cabinda, former NFL fullback, obviously played at Penn State. Been seeing him on the NFL Network as well with Good Morning Football. We appreciate you jumping on board with us for a few minutes today, Jason.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate it.
There you go. Jason Cabinda doing a little prospect profile today on Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter. We'll take a break. We'll come on back in 5 minutes. When we do return, we will get to a little onside, offside. You don't want to miss it. We'll get to it next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Breaking news on the Zach Gelb Show.
Yes, we do. And the breaking news is not that onside offside is going to get pushed to 15 minutes from now. The breaking news, though, is according to Ian Rappaport, Rap Sheet, NFL Network, the Cincinnati Bengals have made significant progress on massive contract extensions, not just extension, with star wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and both could be finalized in the coming days. Sources tell Rap Sheet and Tom Pelissero there is work to be done, but Joe Burrow's wish is close to coming true. So there's the breaking news. And my reaction to this, even though it's not finalized yet, it seems like they're in the stage of crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And I don't think this gets out there. I don't think the Bengals allow this to get out there if they know that this deal isn't going to get done. If they're not in striking distance and they're hammering down the nail and there's just like 2 more hammers to go, but you know where this is going. Because the only way I think that contract news would get out on this, besides, okay, the deal's done, but like preliminary contract stuff is if it's negative. Like, let's say if they were lowballing T. Higgins and T. Higgins' agent would come on out or leak out to Ian Rappaport, they're nowhere close. Jamar Chase as well. Jamar Chase, we always knew was going to get done. It was, would T. Higgins get done? And Joe Burrow putting the pressure and the full court press on the Bengals organization, I think is what eventually will get T. Higgins paid. They would be the biggest idiots and morons and dopes on the planet if they didn't pay Jamar Chase. The T. Higgins one was a different conversation, but you look around the league, like if the Eagles could find a way to pay A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and the Dolphins could pay Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, then why can't the Bengals pay both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Like that, to me, is something that should be able to get done. And now it seems like they are on the verge of getting it done. Now, with all that being said, I think there's a different take to come from this. And the different take that comes from this, I really do believe, is that Trey Hendrickson's probably the odd guy out. Because since the market went up and up and up for wide receivers, right, the wording is significant progress on massive contract extensions. Not just they've made significant progress on contract extensions, you're going to be paying a good amount of money to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. So you have Trey Hendrickson, who has 1 year left on his deal. Could they find a way to maybe sweeten the pot for 1 year? Yes. Trey Hendrickson wants out, though, right now. Right? He doesn't think a deal. He is not optimistic in thinking, and I understand it, now 2 years in a row that this deal is going to get done. And you may have some people like Seth Payne who joined us earlier in the week. They'll be like, tough. You signed a deal. Honor the deal. Right? But we know that's not always the case. So I could see Trey Hendrickson getting traded. Also, when I don't believe Micah Parsons will get traded, I do eventually agree, even though he should request a trade, that TJ Watt is going to get a long-term extension, and Myles Garrett just got paid. So with the way that those situations we think are trending, that inevitably the Cowboys will get a deal done with Micah. Inevitably the Steelers will get a deal done with TJ Watt. And then Myles Garrett, we thought was good as gone. Oh, nope. He's staying with Cleveland. I think Trey Hendrickson then becomes a fascinating one. And can you find a way to smooth things over, bygones be bygones, and you have him back for another season, Trey Hendrickson, this one last push, your last dance? I guess it's possible, but I think there will be a strong enough appetite there and a robust enough market out there where the Bengals can look at it and be like, okay, we're good with moving on from Trey Hendrickson. Now, we may look at the Bengals next year if they don't have Trey Hendrickson, how we looked at the Bengals this year when they did have Trey Hendrickson, right? If not worse, where it's like, okay, you look up and you glance up and you see Joe Burrow leading the league in passing touchdowns and passing yards, and you see also Jamar Chase, the Triple Crown, receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. And remember, last year, Trey Hendrickson, who led the league in sacks, was 17.5, but the defense stunk. Now, you take 17.5 sacks away from the Bengals, right? Trey Hendrickson, let's say, gets traded to the Bills or the Eagles or the Commanders, whoever it may be. And you go into next season without Trey Hendrickson, your defense was already well below average last year. Your defense was rancid last year. If it was rancid last year, then how worse does it get after that? It's tough to get lower than rancid. But there's a different level here. And the Bengals could be one of those teams that we look back at them next year, even with the new defensive coordinator and Al Golden. Lou Anarumo, I did not think was the problem. I keep on saying this. When they lost Jesse Bates a few years ago, that was a bigger loss than I think what people realize. He's a damn good football player, Jesse Bates. So now, I would always praise Trey Hendrickson. I remember when Trey Hendrickson was on the Saints, he came on the show. I've always liked Trey Hendrickson. I reached out to his reps and I said, hey, I want him on the show when he was at the Saints. I've, for whatever reason, always liked Trey Hendrickson. So now if you're going to maybe lose Trey Hendrickson, that's a huge loss for the Bengals. And there's questions if you could win a Super Bowl with Trey Hendrickson, right? Because there's so much more that your defense needs help on. We know the offense is going to be fine as long as 9 is healthy. T. Higgins isn't always fully healthy. He missed some games. But as long as 9 is healthy, right, if you just get either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins to show up, they'll be fine on offense. Look at what Andre Yosivas has had some good games out of Princeton. I know that they lost Joe Mixon. Everyone's like, oh, they're going to miss Joe Mixon a lot. Chase Brown did a nice job, too, out of that backfield. That offense is a well-oiled machine. That offense is going to put up a ton of points. But what do a ton of points mean if you can't stop anybody on defense? If you would have told me before the start of the season, if you would have just gave me this, that Joe Burrow would lead the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns, Jamar Chase would win the Triple Crown and Trey Hendrickson would lead the league in sacks. If you just told me those three things and you said, Zach, hey, tell me what you think the Bengals did this year. Bare minimum, I would say 12 wins. Bare minimum, 12 wins. And bare minimum, AFC North champions. And bare minimum, probably the second seed in the AFC. Well, the Bengals were 9-8 last year. Bengals missed the playoffs. So the Bengals need to fix the defense. And you may be taking away their best player on defense because Burrow already paid. And the news, according to Ian Rappaport, is that these deals are going to get done with Jamar Chase and they're going to get done with T. Higgins. So can you find a way to not only get something done, like just rectify? You don't have to get a long-term deal done with Trey Hendrickson. Just massage it to rectify another year out of it. Tinker with it, however you may be. But even if you do, there's still a lot of work to do in that defense. And if you don't and he's elsewhere, then you have already a defense that has a bunch of gaping holes, have even bigger holes because you lose Trey Hendrickson. So I kind of feel like the Bengals next year, it's setting up, Trey Hendrickson or not, they'll put up a lot of points. They can make the playoffs. Burrow's a killer. Jamar Chase is the second or third best receiver in the sport. But ultimately, when push comes to shove, do I think that they're getting to a Super Bowl? I don't. Do I think they're going back to a Super Bowl? No. Do I think they're winning a Super Bowl this upcoming year? No. Because that defense has a lot of work to do. Bengals need to do two things. Two things that are obvious. They need to fix the defense and need to get off to better starts. Because I know we all look at the Bengals and we go, they start out 0-2. Oh, what's the big deal? Bengals always start out slow. Okay, you may not be worried about that in September, but how about in December and January when you need an extra game and you lost one to the Patriots to start out the season? Which, let me tell you, as a Patriot fan, there's no reason, zero reason why the Bengals should have, I know any given Sunday, right? But there's no reason, and I mean no reason, why the Cincinnati Bengals should have lost to the New England Patriots this year. So slow starts in defense, those are going to be the things to watch for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. Now, I saw that, I forget where this was. I saw it was on a tweet, but there were top 10 wide receiver duos in the NFL. I think this is from Dove Kleiman, who, by the way, that Dove Kleiman account now sucks. It sucks. And I know some people will say, oh, welcome to the party. No. Like, whoever this old Dove Kleiman was, he did a better job on that account than whoever's now running the account, because the account's been sold from what I read. But the new Dove Kleiman account, it'll be like heartbreaking, tragic, awful. And then you read it and it's like, so-and-so stubbed their toe. They're going to miss a week. Like, it never like, when I hear heartbreak, tragic, awful, I think the worst. And whenever they post something like that, it never matches the energy of what they originally said. But they put out the top. I don't even follow Dove Kleiman anymore because the account is so insufferable. And then I mute it, and I thought that muting usually works because I mute a lot of people. You know, there's just some people that I just can't stand to see their stuff. But now, on the For You tab, sometimes, because I like the following tab more because it's just people that I follow. But it's the second tab, so I don't click it right away, and it doesn't default for me. It defaults for You. I see so many different tweets that I just don't want to see. And occasionally, even though I muted Dove Kleiman, and you want to aggravate us, aggregate us, go ahead. You aggregate. Okay? You do aggregate us, but if you want to aggregate us, go ahead. That's fine by me. The more Zach Gelb, the better. But he put out this tweet the other day, whoever Dove Kleiman is, of the top 10 wide receiving duos in the NFL. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins 1. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams 2. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in at 3. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison in at 4. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in at 5. DK Metcalf and George Pickens in at 6. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams in at 7. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in at 8. And Terry McLaurin and Debo in at 9. And then Drake London and Darnell Mooney in at 10. A few things on that. Stu, do you think Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams already are the second best receiving duo in the NFL before we see a game of Nacua and Adams together? Like, just out of principle, doesn't A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith need to be higher up than Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams? And I love Puka Nacua.
That was one of my takeaways, is that the Eagles duo should be higher.
Yeah, and I know Godwin wasn't healthy last year, but Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's a pretty kick-ass duo.
That was my next one. They get overlooked so much, both of them, individually. So I think as a duo, they also get overlooked. They are very, very good.
And doesn't Tyreek Hill, I know that there was injuries there this year, but Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle falling down to 8th? Like, Jamison Williams gets suspended every 4th day. So you're going to put him at 7 with, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I just need to see more out of Jamison Williams before, and he's a speedster, no doubt about it, but before I put him at 7. So, that was another takeaway. If I'm doing, top 5 receiving duos in the NFL, I would say Jamar Chase and T. Higgins 1. I would even go Mike Evans. I would go A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith 2. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin 3. I would then say Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle 4. And then it's between Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. And I think Jefferson's the best wide receiver out of the 4. But from a number 2 option, I think Nacua and Adams are better than Addison. So I guess that I would have to go Nacua and Adams in at 5. Ooh, I don't feel good leaving Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison there, out of that top 5. How would you rank your top 5 wide receivers duos in the NFL, Stu?
I will go Chase and Higgins 1 for sure, Brown and Smith 2 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gets a little interesting. I agree. I would go Evans, Godwin 3. I would go Nacua, Adams 4.
Okay.
And I'll go with the Dolphins duo 5 of Hill and Waddle.
Okay.
My problem with Addison, I just don't think Addison is, Jefferson is incredible, the best receiver in the league. I don't know if Addison is on the level of some of these other number 2s that are on this list.
He's got to have a 1,000-yard wide receiving season first. And he played in 17 games in 2023, 15 games in 2024. He's got to do more before I think. Jefferson, we all know, is the best wide receiver in football. But Addison has to, who I think could be really damn good, got to do a little bit more before we say that duo is a top 5 receiving duo in football. So did we end up having the same list? Or we just flip-flop 4 and 5?
We flip-flop 4 and 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins 1. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith 2. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin 3. And then, what did I do 4-5? What did you do 4-5?
I did Adams, Nacua 4.
I did Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle 4, and then Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams 5. Okay. We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back. Onside, offside next. Update time first. Here's Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, while everyone waits on Aaron Rodgers' next move, the Bengals making some moves, giving their quarterback, Joe Burrow, some support as NFL Network reports they're closing in on new deals for both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and those deals could be finalized in the next few days. The long run for Fran McCaffrey at Iowa has come to an end. The school has reportedly fired its all-time winningest head coach after 15 years. The Hawkeyes were a disappointing 17-16 this year. After missing last year's tournament, they went to the Big Dance 7 times under McCaffrey, but never advanced to the Sweet 16. Conference tournament action today, and right now it's been no contest in the Big Ten, where Wisconsin leads UCLA 80-53 in the second half. In the SEC, late first, it's Tennessee on top of Texas 41-36. Memphis edged Wichita State in the AAC quarterfinals 83-80, while Michigan State down to Oregon earlier today at the Big Ten 74-64. And Auburn had a tough time with Ole Miss, but the Tigers prevail 62-57. In the NBA tonight, the Cavaliers look to surpass their own franchise record for consecutive wins set earlier this season. They go for their 16th in a row tonight in Memphis. I'm Rich Hacker.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, Onside, offside time. Stu, what do we got cooking today? Go ahead.
All right, so as the NFL free agency begins to wrap up a bit, at least its early stages, a few teams have made major splashes. Your Patriots, they have added multiple seasoned veterans, including Milton Williams, Harold Landry, and my guy, Robert Spillane, while the Bears overhauled their offensive line with 3 quality starters, and the Commanders added Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil in trades. Onsides, offsides, the Commanders have had the best offseason so far.
They've had a very good offseason. But I'm going offside, and I think it's because protecting the quarterback is massive. I know you could say, hey, Laramie Tunsil with the Commanders, and they also got in Deebo Samuel. But when you bring in 3 new offensive linemen and get praised for it with Joe Thuney, who's one of the best guards in the sport, you bring in Drew Dahlman, who's a phenomenal interior offensive lineman, and then you bring in Jonah Jackson, who was a very good player when he was last with Ben Johnson. I think that does so much for a football team. Plus, you bring in Ben Johnson to be your head coach, and they were also able to snag Grady Jarrett once the Falcons got rid of him. So I say the Bears right now are winning the offseason. So Commanders are very close, but the Commanders are the best offseason so far. I will go with the Bears over them, so offside.
Offsides. Josh Allen signed a historic contract extension, giving him the most guaranteed money in NFL history. However, earlier this week, Allen admitted that he probably could have gotten more.
It didn't seem like, to my perspective, I was taking a whole lot less. The way that I make sense of it, when you start getting these fairly big numbers throughout the entire league, you know, it's weird to say this, but what's 5 more going to do for my life that I can't already do right now, right? So like it's not that crazy to me, right? Like I live a pretty good life, got a house, got a car, we're good, but I wasn't looking to absolutely kill them in every chance that I could. And I told my agent that. I was like, hey, if this has any impact on the cap, let's figure out a way to not do that.
So onsides, offsides, more quarterbacks will follow Allen's lead and take less to help build the roster.
We always do this whenever there's an outlier. And we're like, oh, so many quarterbacks are going to do this. I've learned enough through my time doing this job that just because one person do it or a few people do it doesn't mean that the majority will end up doing it or more quarterbacks will end up doing it. So more quarterbacks will follow Allen's lead and take less to help build the roster. I will go offside, and you will see maybe an elite quarterback do it. But I like maybe one here and there. But for the most part, there's a lot of good quarterbacks that get paid great money and reset the market, and there's a lot more of them than there are the Josh Allens of the world. So I don't think more quarterbacks will end up following Josh Allen's lead and take less to help build the roster. Offside.
Offside. It is championship week in college hoops with Selection Sunday just a little over 48 hours away. The Big East semifinals tip off after the show at 6:30 Eastern.
I'll be there, by the way.
Nice. With number 6 St. John's, they take on number 25 Marquette.
Let's go, Johnnies.
In UConn, they face Creighton afterwards. Now, Rick Pitino's Johnnies have won 17 out of 18 and are currently projected as a 3 seed by Joe Lunardi. Onsides, offsides, if St. John's wins the Big East tournament, they should get a number 1 seed.
I'm going to go offside here. I think the highest they could go is to 2. I know that they are ranked 6 right now in the country, but the SEC is so strong. I do think you'll see 2 number 1 seeds from the SEC. I do think Houston will end up getting a number 1 seed, and right like Duke. I know Cooper Flagg's not supposed to play tonight or is not going to play tonight up against UNC, but I'd be surprised if Duke is not a number 1 seed. I just don't think there's a path for the Johnnies to get up to 1. If they win the Big East, it's a down year for the Big East. So I don't think, beating Marquette or UConn. I know UConn has the big national brand. I don't think that's going to resonate enough to get them up to the number 1 seed line. So I think the highest that they could go is 2, and I think that they'll end up being a number 2 seed. So I'm going offside here.
Offside.
3 offside so far. 3 questions in 3 offsides.
All right, see if we can go 5 for 5 here. When the Sixers added Paul George and gave him a 4-year, $212 million contract, there was hope for an NBA title run. However, injuries and some terrible play have left the Sixers 21 games under 500.
They suck.
And a long shot to even make the play-in game. Now reports indicate that George may undergo season-ending surgery on his groin and knee. And HoopsWire says the team will look to trade him this offseason. Onsides, offsides, Paul George can still be a number 2 or number 3 on a title-winning team.
He's 34. He turns 35 in May. And those legs have a lot of surgeries and a lot of wear and tear. And I feel like he's always hurt. So do I think a guy that has not won a championship yet, who used to be a phenomenal player, and I mean a phenomenal player. I know I used to call him Playoff Pinocchio for a while because he wouldn't show up in the postseason. But then, right, one of the years Kawhi got hurt, he had a very good postseason run and had some good moments. But do I think Paul George can find the fountain of youth and be healthy and go win a championship, which he's never done, and be a number 2 in a title-winning team? I don't think so anymore. I think we're past those days. I don't know how, like, maybe a 3, right? Like, he's a phenomenal player when healthy, but the dude's never healthy. So, Paul George could still be a number 2. Could be a number 2 in a title-winning team. I'm going offside there.
Offside.
That was the question, right?
So, yes, 2 or 3.
Oh, it was a 2 or a 3?
Yes.
Okay. So, my apologies. On my sheet, it says Paul George could still be a number 2 or a number 2 on a title-winning team. So that's why I was a little confused when you asked it. So a 3, I'm still going offside on that. Like, maybe I said a 3. But this, like, I can't rely on him to be healthy.
Definitely not a 2, right?
And, like, the people they match him up with, too, Joel Embiid, hurt. When he was in L.A., it was Kawhi Leonard, hurt. So, like, are you going to match him up with the right 1 and 2 to even be a 3? Now understanding the question, are you going to match him up with the right 1 or 2 to even be a 3? I still question that. Because look at the last 2 destinations that he's been. He hasn't been matched up with the right guy. So a number 2 or a number 3 in a title-winning team, I'm going still offside there. So you can hit the sound there again, Mike.
Offside.
All right, Steph Curry, he is the greatest shooter in NBA history. And last night, he made history once again, becoming the first player in league history with 4,000 made three-pointers. Now, Curry is nearly 900 threes ahead of second-place James Harden and over 1,000 threes more than number 3 Ray Allen. Onside to offside, Steph is a top 10 player in NBA history.
Okay, just a yes or a no. No explanation. First thought, is Steph Curry a top 10 player in NBA history? Stu?
Yes.
Samter?
No.
I would say yes as well. Now, here's the tough part, right? Without, like, actually just thinking the list. He's the greatest shooter the NBA's ever seen. He's won all these championships. He's been the face of the Warriors. He finally got a finals MVP, which people used to ding him for. Who are you taking out of the top 10? Like, this list is from 2020. So Steph wasn't in it, so I think it's perfectly applicable for this conversation. It doesn't have Kevin Durant in the top 10, so therefore, Steph to me is a higher ranked player of all time than Kevin Durant. And like years from now, let's see how guys like Nikola Jokic age into this conversation and as well. So ESPN's list, Shaq in at 10. Then Kobe Bryant, 9. Tim Duncan, 8. Larry Bird, 7. Wilt Chamberlain, 6. Magic Johnson, 5. Bill Russell, 4. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 3. LeBron James, 2. Michael Jordan, 1. I don't think you could take out, obviously, MJ, LeBron, Kareem, Bill Russell, Magic, Wilt, and Larry Bird just for starters. I don't think you could take out Kobe Bryant. So it comes down to you have 2 spots, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Steph Curry. So Stu, Mr. Laker, and I just said, to preface it, to be clear, like sometimes you say something and then I said it as well. Yes, like who are you taking out? So who would you take out there, Tim Duncan or Shaq, in order to put Steph Curry in there?
I would actually take out Wilt and Kobe before I take out Duncan and Shaq.
Wow. Whew. Wilt and Kobe.
Yeah.
Huh. That's fascinating. Why Kobe, just wondering?
As great as he was, and he was great, I don't know. I feel so the first 3 titles obviously was a lot because of Shaq.
Mm-hmm.
If you go by the title conversation.
But then the 2 afterwards,
were great. Don't get me wrong.
That's what puts, for me, Kobe in front of Shaq.
We're splitting hairs at this point with those. I feel like Wilt My problem with Wilt is that he was kind of like, it was because of the era he played in.
Okay.
That's why I would take out Wilt.
I can't believe I'm saying this. What Tim Duncan did was so impressive. Like, pound for pound, I do think people would rather have Shaq than Tim Duncan. And I know this is the best player, and therefore that just totally erases everything I just said.
Yeah.
But, like, I got to have Tim Duncan in the top 10 when you win that many championships in San Antonio, right? So I would take out, 10-year-old me hates myself right now. I would take out Shaq in that conversation. And I want to go barf in a bag. You know, I really do when I want to say that. But I don't see how you don't say Steph Curry's not a top. This is a shooting league now. He's the greatest three-point shooter the game has ever seen. He's won 4 championships. 4. 1 before KD, 2 with KD, and 1 after KD. And he's also like, hey, I get it, when Shaq played, he was very likable, but is there an athlete that's more likable, maybe in the history of sports, than Steph Curry? He's so fun to watch. So I hate myself for what I just said, but, you know, sometimes got to give a take, and you may not like the take, but that's a take that you got to give. All righty, we're coming on back. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. What will Sam Darnold be in Seattle? We got some sound from Sammy Slingin' Darnold and John Schneider next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You know, I'm going to ask you a simple question here. I'm going to give you player A or player B, Stu. You tell me which one would you rather have. So, player A completed 66.2% of his passes. Player A had 4,319 yards this past year. Player A had 35 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. So player A, 66.2% completion percentage, 4,319 yards, 35 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Player B completed 70.4% of his passes, threw for 4,320 yards, had 21 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. Would you rather have player A or player B?
I'll take the large amount of touchdowns over the completion percentage, so I will go with player A.
I will as well. Now, player A was Sam Darnold. Player B was Geno Smith. However, with that being said, look at the environments they were in. Sam Darnold plays in a dome with the best wide receiver in the league. And I get it. Geno Smith, had DK Metcalf, had also Jackson Smith and Jigba, had Tyler Lockett. Geno Smith, played all 17 games this year. But DK Metcalf's not Justin Jefferson. Tyler Lockett's very good. He's not Justin Jefferson. And also, Kevin O'Connell is, basically the offensive coordinator. So, I look at what Geno Smith just did this past year in Seattle, working with less, and then what Sam Darnold did working with more in Minnesota. I think everyone say Minnesota or Seattle. Seattle last year. Forget this year. Seattle last year or Minnesota last year. Who would you rather be a quarterback for? Everyone would say Minnesota. It's not even close. So I'm looking at the numbers in a situation now in Seattle that's worse, right? Worse. And Geno Smith in that situation this past year had the fourth most passing yards in the league with 4,320. Just beat out Sam Darnold. It's by a yard. Had a completion percentage that was better than Sam Darnold. And sure, Geno threw more interceptions. Geno threw fewer touchdowns. So I look now, I put Sam in Geno's position where there's no Tyler Lockett. There is no DK Metcalf. Sure, you have a offensive coordinator now that you're familiar with. but your best wide receiver is Jackson Smith-Njigba. Jackson Smith-Njigba would be the number 2 wide receiver on Minnesota. Like, you're not better than Jefferson. I would rather have JSN over Addison, but Addison's no scrub. And Kenneth Walker's a good running back, but we'll see if he could stay healthy, him and Charbonnet. So, like, and you're going outdoors, too. So I look at Sam Darnold, and I've been trying to figure out what Sam could be in Seattle. I think it's a fine roll of the dice because of the age. Sam is 27 years old. He turns 28 this summer. Geno Smith is an older quarterback. He's 34. And he's going to be 35 by October of the football season. So I get when Seattle said, okay, we don't got Pete Carroll here anymore. We got a new head football coach. We're going to have a new offensive coordinator. So we did this 1 year of Geno Smith. We were fine. We almost won the division. We just missed out on winning the division. We just missed out on getting to the playoffs. So I can understand why, even though I don't know if they believe that Sam's going to be their franchise guy, like they can't without question say that Sam is their franchise guy. Even if they say it, we know that it has many questions with it. So I'm fine with them on a 3-year deal for $110.5 million and $55 million guaranteed. Them saying, even if this is one and done, and we're there with a lot of egg on our face because we had $55 million guaranteed locked up in this guy, relative to the position, I think it's a risk worth taking when you get younger at the quarterback position. And maybe last year was enlightening for Sam. And maybe last year gives Sam confidence that he hasn't had since USC. And even though it was bad at the end of the year up against the Lions and up against the Rams in the playoffs, maybe that's what gets Sam moving in the right direction. Where I don't think anyone's looking at Sam Darnold and expecting him to go to Seattle and be a top 5 quarterback in the league, right? But maybe he could find a way to be the 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th guy consistently in the NFL. You know, maybe that's what Seattle is hoping that he turns out to be. But you were in a spot with Geno Smith where you were going to have to give him a 2-year extension, and you're going to have to pay him anywhere between $40 to $45 million. So if you're willing to do another year or two of Geno Smith, why not get rid of Geno, get a pick back, get younger at the position, and you rock and roll with Sam for a season or two? But I think the questions become with Sam, how far are your numbers going to drop off? Now, Geno did have more passing yards, well, a extra passing yard, and his completion percentage was better. But if you're Sam, everything right was in your favor last year. O'Connell and Jefferson, you got Hawkinson back, right? You go through, you have Addison, like you were in a dome. And that produced a 66.2 completion percentage, 4,319 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. And still at the end of the year, it ended on a very sour note. And you look back and you see the look of Sam Darnold, and it was like, okay, he did a lot of good this year, but you really remember more of the bad at the last 2 games of the season than the good. So this turns into something here with Sam Darnold where I wonder the numbers in Minnesota, how much of a drop-off are they going to be in Seattle? And I would imagine he throws fewer touchdown passes in Seattle. I imagine he throws more interceptions in Seattle. Passing yards could be similar because they're going to ask him to throw the ball a lot. And if his completion percentage was lower in Minnesota, why do I think it's going to be higher in Seattle? So if Sam Darnold throws for like 4,200 yards this year, right? If he throws for 27, 28 touchdown passes, and if he's able to, the turnovers are key. Geno had 15 last year, interceptions. Sam had 12. If he could find the way to only get like 8, I think those are numbers that the Seahawks would sign up for, obviously. But what is it going to lead you to? Does anyone think that's leading you to an NFC West championship? You know, is that leading you to the postseason? I guess it puts you in striking distance to make the postseason. But I don't think you're going to look at Sam as someone that's going to go win multiple games with the Seahawks. And what the Seahawks did, I like the direction they were heading in. I thought that was a team that was a quarterback away. And you could argue they basically just made a lateral move at the quarterback position, and they brought in someone that was just younger. So I'm fine with that, but I was waiting for that move, right? And I knew that Lockett wasn't going to be there long term. I just totally, grossly miscalculated what they thought of DK Metcalf. All right, I was wrong on that. I'm still a big fan of Jackson Smith and Jigba, but now you lose 2 out of your 3 best wide receivers, and the quarterback, you may have got slightly better at most, but I can't sit there with full confidence to say that, and you just got younger. What teams do when they move on from a quarterback is fascinating. Like, Stu, your Raiders, you know better than anybody. They move off of Derek Carr. There's a lot of reasons to want Derek Carr off the roster. But when your pivot was to Jimmy G, and now we're sitting here a few years later, and it's Geno Smith, and it's different regimes too, it's like, when are you actually going to go get the guy? Like Pittsburgh. Hey, a Big Ben retires. All right, you do the Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges thing. You call your shot in Kenny Pickett late in the first round, or midway, a little past midway in the first round. Then you go get Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and now you may be going to old man Aaron Rodgers. It's like, now, Big Ben was a Hall of Famer that went through a long run. Derek Carr, it was time to move on. Geno Smith, you didn't have to move on, but I would have thought if the Seahawks were moving on, it would have been for a bigger name than Sam Darnold. And I'm someone that, said in November that maybe Sam Darnold's going to go to the Seahawks. But I think if Sam Darnold still had DK Metcalf, maybe we're talking about this in a different way. But when you're throwing him out there with only, catching the ball, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I do think it changes the conversation on maybe you should have just stayed with Geno Smith. And how that all went down is fascinating to me. Right? Because it seemed like they were getting close to doing a deal, or they at least offered him $45 million, and the Raiders still don't have a new deal with Geno Smith. So it's not even if the Raiders are even necessarily that close. Maybe they have an idea, right, and all that stuff, but that's to me, Stu, and you've had experience with this. And I think it's different like when, for example, Brady walks out of a building, or Roethlisberger, like legendary quarterbacks, right? Not everyone's going to be Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, right? Like even the Packers, to their credit, Jordan Love has excitement right now. And the Patriots, right, have found Drake May. And we got to still see if Drake May is good, but you had to go through Mac Jones first. But there's a different level of excitement with Drake May. The Steelers haven't had that excitement again. But the Raiders and the Seahawks are in similar boats. So you had a guy that was fine, right? Like good. Like you could talk yourself into saying there are moments when he looks like a top 10 quarterback. Not that he is a top 10 quarterback for an entire season, but moments when he looks like a top 10 quarterback. And the moves since then for the Raiders have been baffling. And this, I'm not going to call this move by Sam Darnold and the Seahawks signing him as baffling, but I always thought, okay, when they get rid of Geno Smith, they're going to go to their guy, right? That Geno was a placeholder, but he was a longer placeholder than we could have thought. But you could do a lot worse than Geno Smith. You could also do a lot better. And at best, Sam Darnold is a little bit better than Geno Smith, if that. And that's the part to me, Stu, where I look at Sam Darnold. I think that this is a 3-year contract. It could go all 3 years. If you put a gun to my head right now, I would say 2. But do I think ultimately the Seahawks are going to give Sam Darnold another contract extension, like multi-year contract extension? If I'm a betting man, I would probably say no.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not crazy about the move going from Geno to Darnold. I get it, but at the same time, I just don't know what the end game is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I feel like they're kind of similar.
And at least with your Raiders, right? And I know that it's different because, right, they went from Carr to Jimmy G, and then O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and now you have Geno Smith. But, like, the Raiders with Geno Smith, it's still a little incomplete feeling to me. They have someone that if they need to play Geno Smith all 17 games, we know he's competent, we know he's solid, right? It's better than what you had last year. But I got to see what the Raiders do in the draft. Like, if the Raiders with the 6th overall pick get Shedeur Sanders, even if you don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be great, there's at least some hope that the fan base can really rest on and really start to feel. For the Seahawks, I don't see how they're, like, Sam Darnold's their guy right now. If I'm a Seahawks fan, am I feeling that much different from when you entered last year to this year? No, in fact, and it has nothing to do with Sam, right? But getting rid of DK, and I know Tyler Lockett was a fan favorite, very good player in this league. If it was just Tyler Lockett, I'm not saying these things. But getting rid of both DK and Tyler, it makes me say the Seahawks should be, in theory, worse than what they were last year. And they were solid last year, right? They just missed out in the postseason. That's the disconnect for me, Stu. I don't see how the Seahawks can spin this as being something that makes you feel better, because they're not going to go draft a quarterback in the first round, duh. And who's the other playmaker that you're bringing in, even if you didn't want to pay DK Metcalf, that's going to give you some excitement to put Sam in the best spot to ultimately succeed? That's the thing.
Yeah, and it's his overall environment, too. Like you said, just going from what the Vikings had to offer, you know, with the coaching regime, with the 2 receivers. Now you go to Seattle. I mean, I guess it's a slightly easier division, maybe. Maybe that's like the one thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But
we're still starting no one's picking the Seahawks to win the division this year.
You can't. I don't think that's possible. And then, again, you look at the weapons are not there, and the offensive line.
Yeah.
Seattle's offensive line is pretty bad. That was the one thing with Geno Smith last year. Like, he was running for his life, and I can't imagine, unless they get really lucky in the draft, that's probably not going to change.
And to be fair, the Seahawks did a lot better than what people thought they were going to be past year, but their team's going to be drastically different this year. Let's hear from Mike Macdonald, the coach of the Seahawks, on adding Sam Darnold.
When it became apparent that we were going to have to pivot away from Geno, then definitely hoping that it was going to land with Sam. There's some time there, but everyone involved in the process was awesome. John was awesome. Joey Lane was awesome. All of our pro personnel people were on it. So just really fortunate that it worked out the way it did. And there's great quarterbacks out there that that we looked into, but it really apparent that Sam was our guy.
There's one thing that stands out to me there. Play the first 6-7 seconds again.
When it became apparent that we were going to have to pivot away from Geno, then definitely hoping that it was going to land with Sam. There's some time there, but
the laughing there. Now, I haven't heard Mike Macdonald speak much. I've had one conversation with him in my life. It wasn't on air. It was off the air. Young, up-and-coming coach, good dude. But if you're trying to sell me on the fan base on Sam Darnold, right? When it became evident that Geno wasn't going to be back, I was hoping it was like almost a nervous laugh. That it just feels like you were lying. Whether you were or not, be my guest. But it almost is like you need to have that nervous laugh because you know what you're going to say sounds like bull crap.
Definitely hoping that it was going to land with Sam. There's some time there. But.
You weren't saying like you weren't like you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers even at an older age. It wasn't like you got Tom Brady. You got Sam Darnold, right? So here is John Schneider on the Geno Smith trade and how that all came about.
We made an offer to Geno, tried to extend him. It became apparent that we weren't going to be able to get a deal done. Yeah, it wasn't like a very long negotiation. So as a staff, we had to be prepared to pivot, always having a contingency plan. So we had several guys we were interested in, made the trade, and we were able to get the guy at the top of the list.
So I don't know what the pulse of the Seahawks fan base is on this with Geno, but has there been any speculation in the Raiders world, Stu, on how the heck that this contract, like, aren't the reports that indicate they offered him somewhere between $40 to $45 million a year on an extension? And they had conversations, they made him an offer, and then something happened where it went south. They're like, all right, we're just going to send you to the Raiders for a third round pick. Has there been any speculation in the Raiders world? Like, I don't know, when you go down the Reddit threads and all that stuff, is there any like spicy take recently?
Not really. I mean, a lot of it's just like assuming they just didn't want a long-term deal with a 34-year-old Geno Smith. Maybe. And it's also like he's fine. Maybe it's a regime that had 1 year of him, and maybe they're just not as crazy about him as obviously Pete Carroll in the Raiders regime now.
Yeah, I wonder if there was maybe some things behind the scenes. Or like maybe Gino was intending to stay there, and then Pete was like, could use a quarterback,
Oh, maybe.
Maybe if I could get you, would you be interested? A little tampering going on? I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying. Finally, here is Sam Darnold on his struggles in the final 2 games of the season.
I was waiting for someone to bring that up, by the way. I appreciate that. No, it's fair, man. Like, you get all the way to that point. You have the season that we had offensively as a team, and then, you run into, at the end of the day, like only one team can win the Super Bowl. And unfortunately, we weren't that team, but I learned a ton from those last 2 games especially. I think being able to get the ball out a little bit quicker on some of the drop-back stuff that we had those last couple games and understanding where the outlets are. And even if a guy's covered, like even if my back's covered on a check down, like just throwing it at his feet. I felt like I was taking some unnecessary sacks last year, especially those last few games. And, thinking about that, keeping 2 hands on the ball in the pocket at all times and just doing all the little fundamental things. And I think, but that's a big one, is being able to just get the ball out on time.
I was ready to slam that answer in the beginning. I really was. He's like, I'm waiting for someone to ask me that question. I think he meant that to be funny, but it came off in like just a tone that I didn't like. But I think what he said in the back end is 100% true. And I think that's why I believe that's a genuine answer. Like when McDonald's laughing about, I obviously hope it was Sam.
Hoping that it was going to with Sam. There's some time there.
Like that to me is just disingenuous. Sam Darnold is 100% right. In those last 2 games with Minnesota, he was jittery. He was holding on to the ball way too long. He threw the ball at times just way too high. And I think that what he said was, I got to get the ball out quicker, and sometimes you got to know when to give up on the play and just throw the ball at somebody's feet. So I like the answer there. Now, the jittery stuff concerned me, though. Because in those last 2 games, he looked antsy. And that went back to like, that's seeing ghost Sam Darnold, which is not a good Sam Darnold to see. The boogeyman. Ooh. But I like the answer. And I think he may have learned something from the last 2 games. Now it's, can you get better at it? And in Seattle, I don't know how much better you're going to be able to get at it. Because in Minnesota, if you're a quarterback, I'm not saying that you go there and you definitely win a Super Bowl. But to be bad as the Minnesota quarterback with O'Connell, Jefferson, Addison, Hockenson, Aaron Jones, it's tough to be bad. And the Vikings may win. They probably will win fewer games this year. But it's not saying that J.J. McCarthy can't give better individual numbers at the quarterback position, even when Sam just had a very good individual season. Obviously, a lot more good than bad. But now the question becomes, can J.J., who's a winner, but he's going to be asked to do more than he did at Michigan, can J.J. take the Vikings further than what Sam Darnold did? Because I think Vikings fans would sign up for fewer regular season victories if they go get a postseason victory or 2. Something that Sam Darnold had a goose egg department in when it came to the postseason. All right, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll talk about some Cooper Kupp destinations next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All righty, welcome back in. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You know, the Cooper Kupp market, I think, is interesting. So there was a big push last night that the Cowboys are supposedly making a big push. And then I was like, we don't know if he's still going to go there. You know, I read an article yesterday that said the Seahawks, the Broncos, and the Patriots are the most interested. And then really out of nowhere, the Saints, I guess, are now in this conversation, at least per one report. So let's say those are the 5 suitors. It's like, what does Cooper Kupp want? You know, you've played, you know, you've pretty much accomplished all you can in the NFL at this point for what Cooper Kupp's going to accomplish. You won a Super Bowl MVP. You've done the Triple Crown. You know, you've only played 33 games in the last 3 years. You're a number 2 wide receiver now. You could still look like a number 1 at times, but there's just not enough consistency there with your body getting you on the field enough. Like, your availability is of great question. So I look at those 5 destinations, and I always say this with wide receivers, or really with any player, but really with wide receivers too. It's how much money are you looking for? Like, what do you value? Is it money? Is it winning? Or is it targets? For wide receivers, those are the 3 things: winning, targets, money. And I wonder how Cooper Kupp would rank those. Because I don't think winning for a guy that's already won a Super Bowl needs to be won. And I think in this regard, with how many different teams are getting leaked out, and Cooper isn't like a me kind of guy, I would say it's money 1. I would say targets 2 and winning 3. So in that formula, if it's money 1, targets 2, winning 3, well, in Seattle, I don't know what the money's going to be. You're going there. Maybe you could talk yourself into them being a playoff team. But your targets are going to be number 2 targets. Now, JSN has the propensity to get hurt a bunch. So maybe you could end up getting number 1 targets. The Broncos. The Broncos actually would be a pretty good destination. Now, I don't know how much money they're willing to give out. But the Denver Broncos, they're a team that out of those 5 teams that I just mentioned, the Seahawks, Broncos, Pats, Cowboys, Saints, if you're looking at winning, which is the 3rd thing that I've been talking about for them, that would be ranked number 1 in terms of the team closest to winning. And it's not like they have any, like, Cortland Sutton's a good wide receiver, but it's not a traditional number 1 wide receiver as other teams would have in the NFL. You look at the Patriots. I think the Patriots throw you the most money. They went, I think I saw one report, they were willing to give Chris Godwin $30 million a year. Last year, they were willing to break the $30 million mark for Brandon Ayuk, but Chris Godwin's like, I'm good in Tampa. Right? Brandon Ayuk, for whatever reason, didn't want to go to the Patriots. Who was the Calvin Ridley. They offered him a bag. Oh, my girlfriend doesn't want to go to Foxborough. And how's that working out for you in Nashville and Tennessee? I hope you have a fun little party town down there. They're number 1 pick in the draft. They're worse than us, which is just saying something. So I'm looking at, like, the Cowboys. You're a number 2 wide receiver there, CeeDee Lamb. The Saints, Olave, I think they're disappointed in him in New Orleans. He hasn't popped off as much as people would think. But that's kind of similar to the Seahawks and the Broncos, right? With their number 1 quality wide receiver. So here's what I'll say with Cooper Kupp. If it's about the money, and I'd be a little bit disappointed with my Patriots if their biggest wide receiver move this offseason is Cooper Kupp. It's nice to bring him in. I'd rather have Cooper Kupp than not have Cooper Kupp. But for a team that went all in on Harold Landry, went all in on Milton Williams, went all in on Robert Spillane, right, got Morgan Moses, I would have thought that they would have done more at the wide receiver position. Now, you can't make people say yes, right? And unless, I know it's a different regime, but the Patriots are drafting better at wide receiver, like, that's the only way that you're going to get one of these wide receivers. Unless if it's a trade, like you go, just take on the deal for Ayuk. You would have given him the contract last year. Now he got his contract, I guess, for less with the 49ers, but it's coming off a major injury for Brandon Ayuk. So if it's about money, I think Cooper Kupp lands in New England. But if I'm him, I think I'm going to Denver. I think I would go to Denver where you have Sean Payton. You're looking at Bo Nix at the quarterback position. I think Drake May could be a good quarterback, but Dak Prescott's a solid quarterback, obviously, good quarterback. The Saints, I'm good on Derek Carr. Seattle, Sam Darnold's fine. But I think there's some excitement on Bo. Obviously, Sean has been a really damn good coach in this league for a long time. And if it's about targets too, and I don't know what the money is for the Broncos because I think that's number 1, but if it's also about targets, it's like Cortland Sutton's good. Like, very good wide receiver. But if Cooper Kupp is playing the way that Cooper Kupp could play and he is healthy, there will be plenty of targets for you to get. And that's a team that just made the playoffs. When we look at the other teams, Cowboys went in the playoffs last year, Patriots went in the playoffs, Saints went in the playoffs, and the Seahawks went in the playoffs. So if I'm him, And he didn't want to leave LA. But the Rams were like, oh, we're going to upgrade and we're going to go bring in Devontae Adams, and you're going to be that guy out because of the emergence of Puka Nacua, a fifth-round pick who ended up being a very good player in this league. I would pick Denver if I'm him. I think this is, out of those 5 teams, the 5 teams we've been told, Seahawks, Broncos, Pats, Cowboys, Saints, if you said pick 2, like, I think it would be either the Patriots just going to throw the most money at him, or it's going to be the Denver Broncos. So that, to me, are the 2 teams right there if I'm Cooper Kupp. And Pats, it's for the bag of cash and the targets. And for the Broncos, it's putting yourself in the best environment out of those 5 teams: Seahawks, Denver, New England, Dallas, and New Orleans. All righty, we'll take a break. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, we will get to our Ask the Pros question. Also, 3 things to look for headed into the NCAA tournament. We have Conference Championship Week, obviously. We're going through that. I'm going to be at the world's most famous arena tonight, Madison Square Garden, for 2 games, semifinals of the Big East tournament. And then coming up on Sunday, Selection Sunday, and you know what that turns into for radio on Monday. Brackets. Now, when does Aaron Rodgers decide to just insert himself into March Madness? Because let me tell you, I don't think we're getting an Aaron Rodgers decision over the weekend. But you never know when the white smoke is coming. Let's just be real with Aaron Rodgers. You never know when this dude is going to make a decision. So I would guess and say that we're not going to find out next week. But if we're getting breaking news on Monday that Aaron Rodgers, has signed with whomever, Vikings, Steelers, or the Giants, you could bet you know what? No offense to the NCAA tournament, that's the first thing we're talking about Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern. It would absolutely be the first thing that we're talking about. Now, with that being said, do I think Monday we're talking about Rodgers? Yes. Do I think we're talking about Rodgers, though, with a team that we know he signed with? No, I do not. So expect a lot of bracket talk and hoops talk coming up on Monday. Ack, where's your confidence level with your Tar Heels? I know they're going up against Duke. And Cooper Flagg, unfortunately.
No
out.
Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, out.
Yes, and no Malik Brown either. So I give them, I'm kind of at a 7.
You think they win today, they're in?
I think they should be in right now, but I think they win today, they're definitely in.
Mm-hmm. I would assume that you're right that they would get in, but I just wonder with the injuries to Duke if how the committee actually then would weigh that.
Duke's still really good without those guys. I hate to tell you. I mean, you're talking about the player of the year and the number 1 pick overall, but they're still fantastic.
Yeah. So, all right. You still in on Hubert Davis?
I think we have to. The time will tell, but it's easy to say, let's get rid of this guy, and then who do you bring in? So,
well, that's the other thing too. So when they brought in Hubert Davis at the time, I don't love when the legendary coach is there, and then you just bring in a guy because he has ties to a legendary coach. Now, Duke did it with John Shire. It's been working out. Hubert Davis's first year got to a national championship.
Yeah, but it was an up and down first year though, and then Then they didn't make the tournament.
They were an 8 seed, right?
Yeah. Then they didn't make the tournament, and then they came back and had the big year, and then had the early exit last year.
Like Kyle Neptune did a nice job that 1 year at Fordham.
Yeah.
Should he have been taking over for Jay Wright? Probably not. So I would like a legitimate search, but now with NIL and the transfer portal, I think an unintended consequence of this stuff, which is actually good for the coaches, they get longer leashes now.
Yeah,
because if you get rid of the coach, then everyone hits the portal. And you see it in college football too.
Yep. I think the bigger issue that Carolina has, and this is not going to be very popular in the state of North Carolina, they have to get somebody with an outside point of view. And it's nice to have the Carolina way, but I think it's a little too insular if you know what I mean. I just think that they need to have a differing opinion about somebody who's been somewhere else. Now you could argue that guys like Jeff Lebo have coached elsewhere, who's on the staff, and Pat Sullivan, but I just think everything is Carolina, and that's all nice. But I do think it helps to have somebody with experience. Now, what the new GM does, that remains to be seen. That could shut me up.
Belichick's girlfriend?
No. They hired a basketball GM who also is a Carolina grad, by the way. So,
by the way, I got to defend my guy, Bill. So, Bill, did you see this email?
What email?
So, Bill, I guess, got some email, Belichick.
Oh, I thought he emailed you.
No. And I guess when he responded to the email. He said, include Jordan on this. She helps me manage the email. And everyone's like, oh, Bill Belichick, he's whipped. Oh, there's girls like, control everything. Like, Bill is older.
Yeah.
So you have someone that literally was born with the phone in their hands.
Yep.
She's basically being girlfriend and also secretary.
Yeah.
For Bill Belichick. So that's kind of what I thought that was. Like, she's going to inform him, hey, old man Bill, you got some emails that you may want to pay attention to.
Yes.
So she will weed out the emails, I guess.
No more Bears Nigerian to go through.
Yes. Good job out of you. I was surprised Bears didn't join the staff. He's at Boston College with
Bill O'Brien.
With Billy O'Brien. So I think Hubert Davis, though, regardless if they make the tournament or not, I think he's going to be back for another year with
I'd say it's pretty. They have the new GM. They have a very good recruiting class coming in. That helps. They have to identify better talent in the portal. The guy they really did a great job years ago of getting, and they need kind of a guy like him again, Brady Manick. He had some gumption to him.
Great
he had
hair,
too. Yeah, he had a little chip on his shoulder. And he also, the other thing too about him was he hit big shots at the end of possessions, and that's you're playing great defense for 25 seconds, and he hits a three. That's demoralizing.
All right, well, come on back. We'll wrap up shop on this Friday for another great week of the Zach Gelb Show. Update time. Here is Mr. Carolina Blue himself, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Well, no Cooper Flag tonight for Carolina Duke as the sensational freshman is out due to the ankle injury suffered yesterday. Also today, plenty of college action, and right now in the SEC quarterfinal action, Tennessee with a comfortable lead over Texas 75-61 with 4 minutes left in regulation. Earlier today, Memphis just got past Wichita State in the AAC 83-80, while Michigan State topped Oregon 74-64 in the Big Ten. Auburn got 23 points and 15 rebounds from Janai Broome to get past Ole Miss 62-57 in Wisconsin, an easy winner over UCLA in the Big Ten 86-70. Joe Burrow could be wearing a huge smile in the next couple of days, as well as his wide receivers. NFL Network reports the Bengals are making significant progress with both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on new deals which could be finalized in the coming days. Recent free agent signings, Mike Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi by the Bills, both facing 6-game suspensions for violating the NFL's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh my God, we're back again.
Alrighty, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. And it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Jason in Omaha says, Zach, what's the biggest storyline heading into the NCAA tournament? You can submit a question by tweeting at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb. Using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. I think the biggest storyline entering the NCAA tournament is the health of Cooper Flagg. Like, yes, the NCAA, when it comes to basketball, I think the faces of the sport are more so coaches, but with Coach K no longer coaching, Roy Williams no longer coaching, with Jay Wright no longer coaching, like you get into the face of college basketball. You know, Pitino has been excellent at St. John's. Tom Izzo has a team in the top 10. You know, Dan Hurley, his UConn team is not great this year, but he won back-to-back championships and has a polarizing, personality. There's not a lot of great faces from the coaching standpoint right now in college basketball. Like, you go through the AP top 25 and you say, okay, who elicits a big reaction nationally? And I said, big. John Shire, you think of Cooper Flagg first. Kelvin Sampson, nice story. Bruce Pearl, awesome, but like a lovable guy. So like you go through this and you go through the coaches, Golden at Florida, Alabama, Nate Oates, you have St. John's, Pitino, Michigan State, Izzo, Tennessee with Rick Barnes. Like I just went through those coaches. Who really gives a pop between those two? Pitino and Izzo. Do I think that St. John's win the NCAA tournament this year? I don't. I think Michigan State's win the NCAA tournament this year. It'd be a fun story, but I don't. So I would say the biggest storyline entering March Madness this year is now going to be the health of Cooper Flagg, who is the best player in the country, on right now the best team in the country, and yesterday suffered an ankle injury where he's not playing today up against UNC. Quite frankly, even if Duke wins today, I'd be shocked if he's playing in the ACC championship game. And if Duke is a 1 seed, I know for every UMBC, right, which is nuts and wild and crazy, and with Tobin Anderson at FDU, it's only happened twice. Incredible, but twice, where a 16 has defeated a 1. You remember Virginia. You remember Purdue. And when they did go down. So could they say, hey, Cooper, we'll give you even an extra day off, recover semifinal, championship, recover first round of the NCAA tournament. We won't see you till Sunday. I'm not talking this Sunday, next Sunday, because Duke is definitely, we talked about this conspiracy yesterday. Duke is definitely a Friday late night game. Even if they're Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Sunday, you're not seeing Cooper Flagg. I would be shocked if you see him tomorrow if Duke wins. I'd be shocked if you see him even if they're a 2. I'd be shocked if you see him Thursday, Friday. I would be. I'd be surprised. I think if he plays, it's a second round Saturday, Sunday. That's what I would do if I'm John Shire. And if you get burned that way, you get burned that way. It's part of the sport. But I think that becomes the biggest story of the NCAA tournament. I think he was the biggest story heading, before the injury. But it even adds more speculation and more to the story with now him getting hurt. Because then when he comes back, how effective is he going to be? So I would say the 3 things to watch heading into this NCAA tournament are these 3 things. I would say it's Cooper Flagg and his injury. And also how close to Cooper Flagg could he be when he does come back. I also am fascinated by how far Rick Pitino could go. Because Rick Pitino is a gangster. He is. Rick Pitino is the godfather. Rick Pitino, we shouldn't be surprised what he's doing at St. John's with his resume. Because it's an all-time great resume. But that school has been down and out for so long. I'll just say it. They have been irrelevant for 20 years. Pretty much irrelevant for 20 years, St. John's. And Mike Rapoli, right, makes a financial commitment. Rick Pitino goes to St. John's, right, brings some swagger and bravado back. Last year, they should have made the NCAA tournament. They got screwed, but doesn't matter. And look what Rick Pitino has done. In year 2, they're ranked 6th in the country. He is the Big East player of the year, the most improved player in the Big East. Oh, yeah, by the way, they won a regular season title, and he's the coach of the year in the Big East. So even if they don't, if they lose tonight, I'll be disappointed. But even if they don't win the Big East Conference tournament, the fact that they're in position to do that, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am surprised. Even knowing what Pitino has done, it's crazy. 2 years. He's not even done with year 2. And look at the way that we're talking about St. John's. And St. John's has some off shooting nights. And I've heard Pitino say this. They could go home second round of the NCAA tournament, or they could be joining us in San Antonio for the Final Four. I think either you will see St. John's go out of the first weekend, or they're going to go on a long run. I do. That's what I don't think there's going to just be in the middle of just get to the Sweet 16 and lose in the Sweet 16. I think they're either losing the second weekend or the earliest then, if they don't lose the second weekend, they'll be out in the Elite 8. That's what I think is going to happen here with St. John's. And then 3 is the SEC really this great? Because that's been, for me, The thing this year in college basketball that I love the most, when you see Auburn and Florida and Alabama and Tennessee, right? And how great the SEC is, more than just the football conference. And isn't it funny? This year, the Big Ten has kind of taken the title the last 2 years, Ohio State, Michigan, for football. Right? They're on level playing grounds, and now the Big Ten just slightly above the SEC in football for now. For now. That baton and that's going to be tug of war for the next, until we're dead, honestly. Between the Big Ten and the SEC. But in basketball, the SEC, man, they've been the best conference in the country this year. So can you have a great regular season and match it in postseason? That's what I'm also fascinated by with the SEC. So those are the things to look for heading into the NCAA tournament, and we'll be all glued to the television when the ball is tipped for the Selection Sunday show. All righty. Fun show today. Big thanks to Jason Cabinda for joining us. Big thanks to Matthew Coller. Big thanks to Stuart Kovacs, Michael Samter, Rich Ackerman, and each and every one of you for listening to the program, watching the program, chatting away on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. We'll talk to you Monday when we got a bracket, everybody. Bracket. We'll do so Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. We out. Bye-bye.